There was a time when I thought anger made me strong, that holding on to grudges gave me purpose. I had trapped myself in this mindset that pain and anger was something I needed to carry with me, that without it, I wouldn't be taken seriously. It got to the point where I found myself outwardly projecting this to others. And maybe if you've ever felt this way before, you may just know how exhausting it can be, how it slowly eats away at you. But what if the strongest thing you could ever do was to let go? And not just of anger, but of hate itself. And not just the weapons we hold, but the ones that we keep in our minds. All of the grudges, the anger, the need to prove ourselves. In a world that tells us to never forgive, to fight back to those who've done us wrong. What does it mean to say, I have no enemies? Well, there was a time I would have called that absurd. But a series introduced me to the idea that hatred isn't a fuel for strength. To me, it's a fuel for war, but a poison to peace and a dead end for growth. That series is Vinland Saga. Now, I didn't expect a manga series about Vikings to change the way I see the world, but Vinland Saga did exactly that. It taught me that real strength isn't about how hard you fight, but about knowing when to stop. And no character embodies that transformation more than Thorfinn Karlsefni. And in this video, I'd like to dive into the meaning of true strength through Thorfinn's journey, how this manga series changed my perspective on life and granted me a new understanding of what it means to be a true warrior in our day-to-day lives. I think for us to fully understand what it means to be a true warrior, we'll first need to look at Thorfinn's life, because his journey didn't begin with the pursuit of peace, but rather with vengeance. Now, from the moment we meet him, his purpose is pretty clear: to kill Askeladd, the man responsible for his father's death. What drives Thorfinn to this isn't justice, it's rage. Anger becomes his fuel, and the force that propels him forward and gives his life meaning. Now, it's important to understand that the story of Vinland Saga is set in the Viking era, which is notorious for being a world of violence and war. So it's really no surprise that Thorfinn's quest for vengeance feels almost natural, and to some extent even noble. I mean, he's avenging his father, after all. But beneath the surface, this rage he feels is only the start of a dangerous cycle, one that will consume him if he doesn't break free, the cycle of hatred. Now, at first, each victory Thorfinn achieves seems to strengthen his resolve. With every battle, he believes he's one step closer to avenging his father, but the more he fights, the more hollow he becomes. His hatred becomes his identity. It defines every part of him. Every swing of his daggers, every moment of triumph, it's only deepening this never-ending hole inside of him. In our lives, we often mistake anger for strength, as if holding on to it makes us more powerful. But in reality, it only binds us to a cycle of suffering, one where the cost of vengeance outweighs any fleeting sense of victory. This cycle of hatred goes as followed: anger feeding more anger, and violence feeding more violence. And don't get it mistaken, this isn't just Thorfinn's fate. It's a cycle that traps anyone who clings to hatred. We see that crystal clear within Thorfinn after his father's death. With each fight he wins, Thorfinn isn't moving closer to his goal, he's only falling deeper into a world that offers nothing but more pain. It may be easy for some to misinterpret this as noble and strong-willed, and maybe for some, this is it. This is what it means to be a true warrior, to fight endlessly, to conquer, but to never be free. But what would it mean to let go of all of this? Of vengeance, of anger, of the weapons we carry, both physically and emotionally? This is where Askeladd comes in, a character we meet early on in the series that is designed to be hated. But throughout the story, we begin to see a shift. We begin to almost root for him. As Thorfinn's enemy, Askeladd serves as the embodiment of the world that Thorfinn is fighting against. But more than that, he becomes something else entirely. He almost acts as a catalyst for Thorfinn's eventual transformation down the road. Askeladd's role forces Thorfinn to confront his beliefs about strength, vengeance, and what it means to be a true warrior. Askeladd is honestly one of my favorite characters in Vinland Saga. He represents what leads to the end of the cycle of hatred, and to understand Askeladd's impact on Thorfinn, we first need to understand himself. See, unlike Thorfinn, Askeladd never had the luxury of innocence. His childhood was shaped by cruelty, betrayal, and survival. Born the son of a Welsh slave and a Viking warlord, Askeladd learned early on that brute strength alone wasn't going to be enough to survive in a savage world ruled by violence. He grew up resenting his Viking heritage, seeing them as beasts who only knew how to take and destroy. But instead of fighting them head on, he played a different game. Askeladd became a manipulator, someone who understood that real power didn't come from swinging a sword, but from knowing when to use it. Askeladd's philosophy is what makes him a fascinating character in Thorfinn's life. While Thorfinn fights with blind rage, Askeladd fights with purpose. And while Thorfinn sees honor in combat, Askeladd sees it as a means to an end. And despite being the man who killed Thorfinn's father, Askeladd becomes the closest thing Thorfinn has to a mentor. He forces Thorfinn to survive, not on strength alone, but on strategy and endurance. Thorfinn, of course, refuses to acknowledge this. His hatred for Askeladd blinds him to the lessons he's being taught. But Askeladd doesn't really need Thorfinn to understand just yet. He understands that this boy is still trapped in his own rage, and some lessons can only be taught through loss. And that loss comes to Thorfinn in the form of not only his father's death, but also Askeladd's death. When Askeladd sacrificed himself to ensure Canute's rise to power, Thorfinn's world is completely shattered. The man he spent his entire life chasing is gone. Just like that. Without Thorfinn getting his revenge. In that moment, he's left with nothing. No purpose, no enemy, and no direction. And while Thorfinn may not realize it, this is the moment his journey really begins. Because in losing Askeladd, he's forced to confront the question that has haunted him his entire journey. What now? Askeladd's death marks the end of Thorfinn's past and the beginning of his transformation. And for the first time, he is really free. But this freedom means he needs to find a new path, one not defined by vengeance. And whether he realizes it or not, the man who killed his father has just given him the very first lesson in what it means to be a true warrior. If strength isn't about power or revenge, then what is it? We tend to admire heroes, fighters, and those who stand their ground. But is there strength in walking away? In the real world, we may not be wielding swords, but we still fight battles every day. We hold on to grudges and convince ourselves that letting go means losing. Friendships can even crumble over something as trivial as political differences, as if disagreement makes someone an enemy. I know this all too well, because I used to believe that carrying anger made me stronger. I walked around with a chip on my shoulder, convinced that displaying kindness would be mistaken for weakness. If someone wronged me, I'd be quick to cut them off without hesitation, not just to protect myself, but to feel in control. At the time, I thought I was keeping my power, but in reality, I was just making myself lonelier. My anger didn't make me strong, it only made me bitter. And this is exactly what Thorfinn begins to realize. For years, he believed that strength was something you take with a blade, but as he begins to lose everything, he starts to see that true strength, well, at least the kind that lasts, isn't about proving yourself through violence. It's about choosing not to fight, not because you're weak, but because you refuse to keep that cycle going. This is where the quote, "A true warrior needs no sword," starts to really take shape. It's not just about refusing to fight, it's about breaking the cycle of hate. Choosing peace isn't easy. It's not as simple as deciding to be kind or refusing to engage in conflict. It requires restraint and the ability to accept that you can't control how others act, only how you respond. And often it means letting go of the part of you that thrives on anger. In the real world, this might mean walking away from an argument that you know you could win. It might mean forgiving someone who hasn't apologized. It might even mean accepting that no matter how justified your anger feels, holding on to it won't give you peace. Because the truth is, peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's the ability to move forward without being weighed down by the past. This is exactly what makes Thorfinn's journey so powerful. After spending years defining himself by violence, how does he just stop? How does someone who has only known war suddenly choose to build rather than destroy? The answer is it's not sudden. It's a process. Even after rejecting violence, Thorfinn still struggles with his past. He carries guilt for the lives he's taken and fears that deep down, he's still the same person who once lived for battle. Choosing peace doesn't erase his past. It forces him to confront it. And just like in real life, that is the hardest part. That in itself is true strength. A true warrior needs no sword. It's a phrase that sounds contradictory at first, especially in a story about Vikings. But through Thorfinn's journey, it becomes clear what it really means. Strength isn't about how hard you fight, how much pain you can endure, or how many enemies you can defeat. It's about the ability to let go of hatred, to rise above vengeance, and to build something greater than yourself. It's easy to believe that anger makes us strong, that if we hold on to resentment, if we refuse to back down, we'll stay in control. But the truth is, anger just controls us. It isolates us. It turns us into something we never intended to be. Thorfinn had to lose everything before he can see that, but we don't have to. Vinland Saga changed my perspective on what it really means to be strong. I used to think that pushing people away and staying guarded would protect me, but in reality, it only made me lonelier. I saw myself in Thorfinn, someone who let anger define them, until I realized that peace, though it's difficult, is the only way forward. But what does it mean to be a true warrior in your own life? What battles are you currently fighting that may not need to be fought? Maybe true strength isn't about winning, but about knowing when to walk away. Hey everyone, I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video if you've made it this far. You know, this video took me a long time to be able to write, record, and edit this whole thing. It took me about a month. So I just want to say thank you for sticking to the end. I also want to say thank you because I noticed that I have just reached 1,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel. And for everybody who's here as a subscriber, thank you so much for the support. If you're new to my channel and you want to subscribe, by all means, I absolutely would appreciate it. These videos take me some time to make and have them put out. Your support is always super appreciated. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.